family. They love the family, they love the movies.
Hello and welcome to Film with Family. I'm Austin.
And I'm Zach.
And we are two cousins who love to talk about movies. And today we have a very special episode. We will be talking about the 1982 Les Blank documentary, Burden of Dreams. And to discuss this film, we have a very special guest, filmmaker, photographer, and artist, Harrod Blank, the son of Les Blank. Harrod, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm glad to share.
Where are you joining us from today?
I'm actually in Les Blank's office of his house that once was his house. After he died in 2013, I sort of revamped everything. So I kept it the same, but I fixed the house up, I painted it, but all the art is exactly the same and the aesthetics is exactly the same. And the same for the office. And his office, for those of you that ever got to visit Les in his office, it is like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just covered with knickknacks from all over the world that he collected. And there's a wall of women in front of his chair that he liked to gaze at during working. And then there's T-shirts everywhere on two walls. And then there's 16 millimeter prints on another wall. And it's quite a sight and quite messy and cluttery.
Nice. So do you live in the house?
I live here part-time. I actually live in a shack in the back, and I moved into that shack in 1989, and I was recovering from pneumonia, and I was living in Santa Cruz at the time, so I came up to visit Les to go to the hospital, and I ended up recovering, and I was really close to death, really. I was really bad off, and it took me a month and a half to come back. And when I came to, I thought, well, what am I going to do with my life? And I thought, what am I good at? And I thought, well, I know about art cars. I've spent a lot of time making art cars and documenting art cars. And I thought I should just make a movie. And I had a reticence about trying to do what my father did. I thought I should do something unique to me. But when I decided after having pneumonia to study film, I just excelled. It was like a second language. And it was because I was, brought up by Les, and he taught me pretty much everything that I know. And which is an amazing gift.
Nice. So you're in Berkeley, California. That's where.
Yeah, I'm in Berkeley, California.
And that's where Les grew up. That's where you grew up. You've been California folks your whole life, or?
No. Les is a Southern boy. Les was born in Tampa, Florida in 1935. He grew up sort of as a black sheep of the family. They wanted him to be a lawyer, and he had no interest in being a lawyer. They wanted to shave his beard. When he got a beard when he was young, he didn't want to do that. And he went into filmmaking. They thought that was stupid. And he didn't listen to that. And then he went to college in Tulane at New Orleans and met my mother. And that's how that got going. And then they moved to LA and started a family, and he was making industrial films. And if you're curious about his industrial films, I did digitize them all, and they're on the website www.lesblank.com, and you just scroll down till you see industrial films, and then you can see what he did. And back in that day, he had to write the narration. He recorded everything he did the camera, he did the sound, he did everything. And wrote the script, and then he made these. They're like infomercials, but they're industrial films. They're like 26 minutes long, or 10 minutes long, or whatever. And he did like over 30 of those. So that's where he honed his skills and learned how to tell stories. And then he took that knowledge and applied it to filmmaking, but the type of films that he wanted to make, which were more like visual poetry. And
Mhm.
the first big movie that he did was called The Blues According to Lightning Hopkins in 1967. And this, by the way, is also when he teamed up with Skip Gerson. At that time, Skip Gerson was doing the audio and Les was doing the camera. And they did God Respects Us, and they did That's God Respects Us When We Work But Loves Us When We Play. And then they did The Blues According to Lightning Hopkins, Spend It All, and A Well Spent Life, which is about the blues musician Mance Lipscomb, and Spend It All, which was about Cajun culture, Mark and Anne Savoy and Cajun country. And then I think that was it with Skip Gerson. Skip and my father had a falling out as Skip started dating my mother, and Les didn't like that. So they had a falling out, and then I've been assigned to work on Les's legacy and remaster his films, and those included films that he never finished. And one of them was about Thailand. It was a film that he even had the art title, Thailand Moment. He had it mostly edited, and so that was shot with Skip Gerson in Thailand when they were on assignment to make a film about the B-1, B-52 bomber campaign of Vietnam. And they had a job. And while they're waiting for their clearance to get on the airplanes and film, which took months, they ended up going to the market, the water market in Thailand, and filming, and that's the movie. And so I put that out in 2015. And Skip Gerson is part of that. And now he was established. And when Lightning Hopkins came out, that was it. He took the world by storm. He became a sensation overnight.
I kind of want to go back to your films and your film Wild Wheels about car art and the car art you make and the car art around the country. Could you just describe what car art is in kind of a broad sense?
Sure, it's basically art on cars. I mean, it can be almost anything. And
Hmm.
there's different degrees of it. There's different genres of it. I call it art cars. So, but people can say car art. But there's, custom cars and lowriders. They can also be art cars, and vice versa a little bit. But the cool thing about the art car genre is there really is um, there's no criteria that you have to adhere to. Whereas in custom cars and lowriders, you really have to do it a certain way for it to be deemed excellent. And art cars, it's actually more about what you're expressing and then how you execute what you're expressing. And the more unique, the better, and the more wild, the better. Of course, as art cars developed into the 2000s at Burning Man, they became a whole different thing at Burning Man. They became what are called mutant vehicles, and those are so big that they carry passengers, and what they wanted at Burning Man was that you can't tell what kind of car it was. So you have giant ducks, and you have all kinds of different vehicles, but you just don't know what kind it is. With art cars, it kind of goes all over the place. Some cars adhere to the lines of the original car, and some get rid of them. Some show admiration for the car, and some destroy the car. Some of them actually take off body parts and put on completely different parts. So it sort of takes all kinds. And the thing about art cars that I like is that it's a public form of art, and it's a gift. It's a real gift to the community. I don't think people understand that. I don't think they appreciate what those people were doing for them by creating um, public art. And I think that it's been underappreciated in our culture. I mean, I think art in general is underappreciated. I think that artists should be um, hailed as very important careers. And in a lot of cases, they're actually looked upon as being one of the worst careers, or not even a career. You don't make any money. And you could say that for filmmaking too. I
For
mean,
sure.
especially these days, back when my father was doing his thing, he eked out a living, but it wasn't like he was wealthy from it. And nowadays, there's just so many people doing filmmaking. Unless you're a popular YouTuber or hit it big with a film, you're going to be lucky to make money as well.
Yeah, I was kind of curious, how many art cars have you created? Because I saw the documentary. Oh my God, it's Harrod Blank for research for this, and they show two of your cars. Like the first one, I think it's like that Volkswagen Beetle bug car, and then you got the camera car. And I'm wondering if you've had made some more cars since then.
Yeah, I made an interactive music car that was briefly mentioned in Oh My God, It's Harrod Blank. I actually sold that car to Ripley's, believe it or not. And I think it's in Europe somewhere. It was in Orlando for a while, but that car was made to play, and it was like a mobile party unit. I used to take that thing to San Francisco in like midnight in the Mission District, and just a party would just develop around the car. And it was really fun. And people were playing the instruments and drinking and hanging out, and it's just a party on wheels. Then I did a lot of kind of collective art cars with the communities. I did some of those for various institutions like the Mesa Art Center in Phoenix. And then I have a lot of ideas, but to be honest, I shifted from focusing on art cars to focusing on a museum and sort of like a public park for people. I was inspired by Akira Kurosawa's film Ikiru. I think that's how you pronounce it. And
Hmm.
I'm basically building a monument way before I end up getting sick and dying, like the character in that film. He gets sick and he's given a year to live. And then he starts to build this monument for children.
Mm.
But I decided I wanted to build something with the time that I have left, and something so big and so everlasting that continue to resonate way after I'm dead.
Mm.
And that's just a kind of a nice thought that, okay, if I make a movie and I spend all my time, or an art car and I spend all my time making it, how long will that be relevant? How long will it make a difference in anybody's lives? But if you make a monument that is something that provides shade and and bathrooms and public sculptures and art, and it could affect people for a lot longer, I think. So I started thinking of maybe I better spend my time doing something that's going to last longer, out of steel and cement and glass and such. You can look that up on artcarworld.org. That's the museum I'm building in Douglas, Arizona, on the border. The monument, I've kept it a secret because I don't want to be stopped,
Hmm.
and I don't want to create a buzz around it until I actually get it up. But it is going to be, it's a big thing. It's a big, way bigger than anything I ever dreamed to do. And I don't know how to do it either, by the way. I'm having to learn every step of the way, how to do this type of project. It's huge. It's like it was inspired also by Burning Man, the artists at Burning Man that make these gigantic sculptures. So I've always been mesmerized by the scale of the sculptures at Burning Man, and just how majestic they are against the playa, the backdrop of the playa. And so I'm basically, the backdrop is the desert and the city of Douglas.
Yeah, you mentioned before we were recording that yeah, you've been like going to Burning Man for like over 30 years,
Yeah.
right? Have you been like showing art cars there, or what do you do there?
Well, in 1993, when I first went, I was just blown away, and it sold me on A, bringing as many art cars as I could. That's why I founded Art Car Camp in 1994. and solicited art cars from all over the country because I had a mailing list and I was an agent for art car people and started inviting them to Burning Man. And then that started this huge movement at Burning Man. And then I also thought, well, this is a film. This should be filmed, documented. So I started documenting it. And in 1995, Les, my father, actually went with me, and he went for 15 years straight. And I would give him 10 to 20 100-foot spools of film to put in his Bell and Howell. The same camera that shot the aerial shots in Bird of Dreams is the camera that Les used at Burning Man for 15 years straight. And he would come back with this iconographic, definitive Burning Man culture footage of people and art, and just from his own perspective. I mean, Les, I think what makes Les stand out is that he had this sort of sixth sense of what was relevant and how to define it in the camera, how to shoot it and capture it. And it's that's how he saw the world. And he just had a really keen sense of what was relevant. So the weird thing is he knew that about Lightning Hopkins. He knew that about Cajun culture. He knew that about gap-toothed women. He knew that about Burning Man. He could be thrown into any situation and he would capture what was relevant of that time and place. I mean, really relevant. He kind of defined it. And
Yeah.
so that's sort of like another language. I can try to do that, and I do it a little bit, but I can't do it anywhere near how he would do it.
Mm. Yeah. I'm curious since we're talking about it. It's touched on a little bit in the documentary about you. Oh my God, it's Harrod Blank. That you worked with your father on films when you were younger. I was curious what films you worked on with him and what that was like. What was it like working with your dad so closely?
Well, like I said, in the early years, I really didn't want to be like Les Blank. I wanted to get my own identity, so I really didn't. I didn't ask to be a part of what he was doing. And occasionally he would say, "Hey, can you do me a favor? I need someone to record sound tonight." And I'd say, "Okay." And then he would train me on the Nagra and I would record for him. I realized as I got older how special it was to work with Les. And so I started doing more and more for him. And I worked on Gap-Toothed Women as an assistant. I did Werner Herzog Eats His Shoe. Garlic is Good as 10 Mothers. I was actually in that movie as well. You know, before those were the first movies, and then I'd help him out on all the other movies too. So I was camera assistant on the Rycooter film. So I changed all his mags in that film every 11 minutes. I was changing a mag. It was shot on Super 16. And the weird thing is now, even though I wasn't there when he was making Bird of Dreams and all these other movies, now I'm actually executive producing the remastering of them. And so I have to make executive decisions on quality and maintaining the exact aesthetics and the same quality, better quality, and what he would have wanted, to see, which I found out luckily before he died. I interviewed my father before he died about whether in the future, if we could get rid of hairs in the gate or dust or make the quality of the film better. He said yes, by all means, get rid of it. He did not want people to think that they're watching a movie. He wanted them to be entertained. He said that a film should be entertaining. First film that Les saw that blew his mind was Pinocchio. And so he was constantly trying to capture the magic that he got from watching Pinocchio as a kid. So when he filmed Gap-Toothed Women, he's trying to get the audience to feel like watching Pinocchio, the magic and the bewilderment of watching women with gaps in their front teeth, that type of thing. And I'm just working on his legacy, one film at a time, until until I've exhausted everything. And he's got like over 40 movies. I've done 6. So Burden of
Over
Dreams.
40 movies that you haven't restored yet? Or you mean
Yeah,
like,
well, I've done 6, so I think I have another 34 movies I have to do.
wow.
Now that is, in order of importance. So I wasn't gonna do Burden of Dreams, but Werner Herzog's brother contacted me from Germany, and said, "Do you have a better version of this film?" And I said, "No, why?" He says, "Well, it's really not up to current standards." And I'm like, "What?" And then I looked into it and found out, yeah, he was right that it could be a lot better. And that's when I decided to remaster Burden of Dreams.
Do you have any specific memories, like working on Les's films that like jump to your mind, like yeah, stuff like that?
Oh, I got one for you. This is a good one. Um, we were on a film shoot, and unfortunately, this film never got made. And it was a film about it was called Fungus Among Us, and it was about magic mushrooms and other hallucinogenic drugs. And we went up to Brighton Bush, Oregon, and filmed the Millennium Mushroom Conference at the Millennium. And this is how Les operated. We're filming all day long. We're doing interviews with Dr. Hopkins and Jonathan Ott and all these big folk and hallucinogenic drugs and their properties, etc. Scientists and specialists, and all day long we're filming, and it comes down to the nighttime, and they're going to have a big party, sort of like Walpurgis Night or Halloween night, where they drink this brew out of a witch's pot, big black cauldron that contained the mushrooms that folks gathered all day long. And they put all these mushrooms in a pot, all different kinds of magic mushrooms. And then Les, of course, says, "You know what? We are here with the people. We are of the people, and we're going to do this. And if you like. And so he said, "Now listen, what we're going to do is we're going to film. And then as soon as we feel like we're coming onto the drugs, we're going to try to anticipate getting the camera equipment back to our cabin and drop it off. That's our mission." So we're filming all these people. They're dancing around and they're all tripping on this mushroom tea. And all of a sudden we start feeling it. So my father says, Harrod, get the crew together. We got to get back to the cabin. I'm feeling something. I'm like, "Okay, Les, let's go." And we're on our way back. It's about a half a mile walk. And all of a sudden, Les, he's carrying the camera and I'm carrying a tripod, and we got a crew of 5 guys, and Les just starts putting his hands on his head and he's going, "Oh, oh, oh." I said, "What's going on, Les?" He goes, "Oh, I can't get out of my head." I'm like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" I said, "Come on, man. We just got to get to the cabin. Remember?" He goes, "Yeah, but I can't." And so I got the camera.
Oh my gosh.
A night that went on all night long, and my father was tormented with his own thoughts.
Wow.
But that's the kind of person Les was. He was going to indulge
Mm-hmm.
in whatever it was. So when in his films, if they made homemade liquor, like in Sprout Wings and Fly, he was going to drink it. And that's how Les actually got a lot of trust from his subjects, because he was part of their life. He wanted to do what they did. He wanted to drink and eat and dance and do whatever they did. He wanted to partake. He was very curious. That's what Les's MO was, and what made him really special is that his curiosity was big time, really big.
Yeah. And that shines in all of his films. I think that's what's so special about them is you feel very connected to the people that he's documenting and the care that he puts into it. I think it's really, really beautiful. Zach, did you want to ask some more questions about the documentary before we go on to Burden of Dreams?
Well, yeah, I guess just one quick question is it gets brought up that you have a love for chickens, and I grew up on a farm with chickens as well, and we treated the chickens as pets and stuff. We didn't raise them for meat or anything. So I was curious about why you love chickens.
Well, chickens are they're just fascinating. You know, they do have personalities and they do have quirks. Like certain chickens do different things that the other ones don't do. And they are pretty docile for the most part, unless you have fighting cocks, which I've had. Um, but the thing I like about chickens is that they just go about doing their thing, and they're they're pretty happy doing it, you know, as long as they have food, and they do all kind of different things for their own entertainment. Like they take dust baths, and they talk to each other, and they peck on each other, and they, you know, of course they have the whole mating rituals, and then they have the whole pecking order, and there's a lot of psychology in the whole thing. Like there's nothing more sad than when the top dog rooster that you've had gets defeated in a fight by the youngest up and coming rooster and breaks the morale of that senior rooster. There's nothing more sad than that. And when you say the word chicken, you know, when people refer to chickens as you're chicken, you don't want to fight or whatever, that's what it actually refers to. Is it refers to a defeated rooster. And when it's a defeated rooster, life isn't happy anymore. It's just they're the bottom of the pecking order and they feel it. And there's just something so sad about that. Conversely, if it's just a single rooster, the amount of pride and joy in announcing the day, it's basically announcing that they're alive. And there's something just really, really amazing about that. It happens every day. Every day is to be celebrated by crowing. And that is contagious onto you. I think when you have chickens and you hear the roosters crowing, that joy, they're reminding you that they're alive, you're alive, we're all alive. And I think, and they're colorful and they're they just have a regalness about them. I can't really describe it, but that they're special. They're really special to me. They're really special creatures. But it is really sad. Like my main rooster of the last 5 years just got defeated, and he's just miserable. He just sits there in the corner in just misery.
Yeah, my parents, they have a rooster, and like, yeah, they have a son, or his son is kind of an up and coming, but he hasn't defeated his father, so it's the pecking order has remained. So I haven't seen a defeated rooster like that.
Well, you know, that touches upon the whole father-son relationship too. You know, there's a lot of weirdness about the father-son or mother-daughter relationship. There's a lot of potential competition that goes on. I didn't really have that with Les regarding art or making things, but we did have it when it came to physicalness.
Mm.
So a lot of times when I was younger than 16, he would bully me, he would tackle me, he would sit on me, he would put me in a headlock. He would exert his physical dominance over me. But then when I was 16 and I became a basketball player and I was a monster, it changed. And then we would have these very sort of like fighting cocks. We would have these pretty serious wrestling matches and stick fights, and we would beat the hell out of each other um, to see who could endure more pain and to see who would come out victorious. And so that got established like after I was on the basketball team in college. He realized that he couldn't pick on me anymore that way. But in a weird way, and this is just for my father and myself, the physical competitions were how we expressed affection. So when we would wrestle, it was affection, but it was about physical power. It's just a weird thing. But I always respected my father and looked up to my father. When I was in high school, when I was in college, everyone said, "Oh, your father's Les Blank. He's a famous filmmaker." Oh, and so there was always that over me. So I always had higher expectations from my professors and from my peers that I needed to do something that was as special as my father. Now, you can go all the way through to the philosophy of Nietzsche. I less loved Nietzsche as well, and he used to say, you're supposed to outdo me. You're supposed to outdo your father, or you haven't achieved what your mission was. If you can't outdo your father, the race and humans won't advance. So he even put pressure on me that I was supposed to achieve something greater than he did, which is insane because he achieved quite a bit. But on the other hand, I have a real strong sense of drive that I got from Les, and and I don't quit. You can throw anything at me pretty much, and I won't quit. And being a documentary filmmaker, it prepares you for that type of thing because things go wrong. You run out of money. Your camera jams. You lose a battery. Your light goes out, and you just have to deal on your feet. So I think being a documentary filmmaker or a filmmaker in general even sort of trains you for the moment, that you have to be in the moment and execute. And if you have a problem, you can't even think twice. You can't be miserable about it. You have to just tackle the problem and get it done and make it as good as you can.
Regarding that dynamic between you and your dad, and going back to your documentary films, Wild Wheels, and I just recently watched Why Can't I Be Me Around You, and the documentary about yourself, they all really have, they really rhyme with your father's work. And I was wondering, I saw that your father is credited in Wild Wheels.
Yep.
And so what parts of Wild Wheels did he shoot and what did you shoot? And then while you're making your own documentaries, I mean, like the sense of your father's work is kind of in the background. Obviously, you have your own touch to these films, but I'm just curious where the influence is or where you're trying to divert from your dad.
That's a good question. Essentially, I think in some ways I am my dad.
Hmm.
In some ways, I am the reincarnation of my father to some extent because I believe wholeheartedly in what he was doing and what he created. And you know what they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, in the case of myself, I, like I said, I wasn't gonna follow in his footsteps. I was gonna be a writer. But when I did succumb to being a filmmaker, it was second nature because I grew up as a baby watching, somehow being exposed to him working on these movies and stuff. Now, the sense of curiosity is not really something that you can teach. It's sort of like you either have it or you don't. It's innate. So there's this whole thing about innateness versus what you've learned, but I know that I've adopted a lot of Les's sentiments and his values and his curiosity. I do draw the line, though, when it comes to his curiosity regarding eating exotic things. Like he eats durian fruit that smells like shit, and I can't do it. I can't do it. He eats monkey brains out of a monkey on the table in China. I can't do it. He had a fascination with these things that was a little borderline, a little bit sick. His curiosity was almost too much. That's a really good question. I obviously have my own identity.
Yeah.
Les wasn't into art cars, but you know what? I'm working on a movie that he shot in 1962 about decorated motorcycles. Give me a
Oh,
break. He was already filming decorated vehicles back in the 60s. Then
wow.
we're going to make a little short film out of it called Motorcycle Moment to go along with Thailand Moment. And, that's before I was even born. Yeah, there's something there. I'm also different in that I'm a reaction to my father, who was super quiet. I'm super loud. I know how to get attention. I know how to get attention in a way that makes you smile. My father wouldn't demonstrate affection. He wouldn't initiate affection. I had to go get it. And that's why we got it from wrestling. We got it from elbowing each other in the movie theater, twisting each other's ears until somebody screamed, I can't take it anymore. That type of thing. But was he ever to say, I love you? Was he ever to initiate hugging? Was he ever to, he didn't even sign his letters or cards, love less, until my mother got on his case and said, why do you say less? Why not just say love less? Is it
Yeah.
that difficult?
It's a very interesting, especially you say about your dad, that he was quieter. It surprises me that you guys had this kind of aggressive playfulness with each other. I don't know if it was playful, but I
It
mean, it
was it
seems,
was it was playful, but you would have to spend time with him to realize, and you would realize real quick how quiet he is or was. That's why I say I was a reaction to his quietness. He was a very big man, but he didn't do small talk. He wouldn't say, hey, how are you doing today? He wouldn't say, how's the weather over there in Chicago? Those words, he does not say that. So generally, people would have to ask him questions or just be content with silence, just be companions to the experiences that you're going through. That was enough for Les. Just being his companion made him happy because he did like to have companions when he was doing all this wild shit. But if you took it personally that he didn't talk to you or that he didn't express love or that if you took it personally, you were dead in the water. If you put him on the spot, you were in trouble.
I think this is a good transition into Burden of Dreams because your father's attitude and his aggressiveness, his intelligence, that kind of the strong silent type is how I think you're describing him, seems like a good fit for Herzog, and it makes sense that he would admire somebody like that. So, if you don't mind, let's get into Burden of Dreams a little bit. Can you describe what your father and Herzog's relationship was, how they first met, and how that relationship developed into making Burden of Dreams and Fitzcarraldo?
Okay. Well, I'm not really that sure where they met. I just know that they had a mutual sort of unspoken admiration for each other. So I think Werner really respected Les, and I know that Les really respected Werner. And in fact, when I was younger, coming up, the films that we would go see were foreign films and documentaries, and we saw all of Werner's movies when I was a kid. So we would discuss the films, and when Werner would come over for dinner, it was a very, very quiet dinner generally, and they didn't have to say much. There was obvious, respect and admiration amongst them. I think that Burden of Dreams happened after Werner Herzog eats his shoe.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that that's what gave the idea to Werner to. I think it was either Werner's idea or Les's idea to document the making of Fitzcarraldo. Les was actually the perfect person to do that because that was a physical project. That
Hmm.
he had to do a lot of climbing and a lot of heavy lifting. And there's a scene in the movie actually of one of the natives carrying the magazine case, which is that silver case, and they're walking it up the mountain. That was actually shot by Pacho Lane, with
Okay.
that was Bell and Howell. But that magazine case, I used to carry it, and carrying that sucker around up and down those mountains, and I mean, it's just that gears and that jungle and that muddy, slippery jungle and all the things they had to do. That was a physical film, and
They were barefoot too.
and barefoot, and they were stuck there for a long time, and it was very frustrating, and you'd have to have stamina to get through that. And I think that Werner must have known that or saw that, that Les was a trooper, and it worked out. It worked out to be a great fit. And also their personalities. Les is not going to be the one, challenging Werner, or, getting in his face or doing. He's more of an observer. So that was a perfect fit for Werner, who really had to concentrate on what he was doing, and not worrying about, this other project.
Yeah, for people or our listeners who aren't familiar with Burden of Dreams, how would you describe Burden of Dreams in your words?
I think Burden of Dreams communicates exactly what it is. It's the price you pay when you have a dream and you're going to go for it at all cost. And the bigger the dream and the higher the risks, the bigger the burden and the bigger the payoff. So in other words, if you can get through it and you fulfill your dream, no matter how crazy it is, you come out a more fulfilled person in the end. I think Werner must be so fulfilled over the course of his life, because it's actually Werner is the main subject of all of this, I think. He's the one that's challenging himself. He's putting himself in very challenging positions and dragging along Les when it comes to Burden of Dreams. And there's something really crazy about that, and it could be argued that it's actually narcissistic or whatever. But the bigger the dream, the bigger the price, the bigger the reward, in my mind. And I think that Burden of Dreams shows all of that. I think it's just an amazing accomplishment. And of course, with my father's point of view, and Maureen's editing, you get a feel also for the other subjects that are part of this, which are the indigenous people and their beauty, and the fact that they've been living like this for thousands of years. And there's something really beautiful about that. There's something beautiful about seeing their bare feet in the mud and seeing them just do their things. There's something really beautiful about it.
Yeah, it's very like ethnographic.
Which is funny, because Werner says in the film that he didn't want to make an ethnography of these people. He wasn't interested in that. He was more interested in that the indigenous people were part of this film, and that they might be the last indigenous people to do something like that, which might actually be true. I don't know.
Mhm.
But Les was the one that was really taken by the people there and the jungle, and you can feel it. You can see where Les was in his element. He was making magic all day long by creating these images that resonate about the beauty of the jungle, the backdrop of this story, and the people, the indigenous people, and the way that they live their lives, etc. And then you have Werner, the contrast of Werner trying to achieve the making of this movie.
Hmm.
It's a really interesting film for that contrast. The different the that contrast there speaks a lot to the magic of that film, I think.
Yeah. And it does seem from his diaries that he was getting really fed up with Herzog and the making of this film. I was just pulling a few quotes, like where he's just like, I don't care if this stupid boat gets up the hill, and seems like your dad was pretty frustrated.
Yeah, but that's the price you pay, and I
Hmm.
think that the burden of dreams is um, it applies to Les and the making of Burden of Dreams. It applies to Les and the making of all his films. It applies to Werner for the making of Fitzgeraldo. It applies to Fitzgeraldo for the vision that he had about bringing opera to Iquitos. And it applies to all of us that, that's the price we pay. And of course, Les is going to gripe about being stuck there, and he's going to gripe about Werner at the time. But ultimately, um, like I said earlier, they get to reap the fruits of what they created in the end and get satisfaction from that they would never have gotten had not done it,
Hmm.
there's just something amazing about that. And so they also survived. Les and Werner both survived having gone through this, and they come out the other end as it's almost like they survived going to war together.
Hmm.
And there's something about that ties people together when they go through something that's difficult. They come out the other end and they're stronger, and they're deeply intertwined. Um, it's interesting. We're actually looking at trying to republish and reformat those journals from the jungle and re-releasing the Burden of Dreams book, but we haven't got that up. We want to do an audio book, or at least a digital book, a digital version of that book,
Hmm.
ideally when the film comes out. But I'm starting to run out of time now.
Yeah, do you recall any conversations you had with Les about his experience making Burden of Dreams or how he talked about it at all?
I do remember him griping about it in the early years, like after he made the film, and griping about Werner and being a madman and all this stuff. But that sort of went away as time went on. Um, but Les would also he would gripe about other films that he was working on as well. Whenever there was problems, he would definitely gripe about the fact that he wasn't getting funding, and he couldn't get grants, and yeah, and that was tough on him. But the Burden of Dreams, he didn't. I was in high school at that time. Unfortunately, I wish I could have been on that crew. I would have been taking pictures like crazy if I was in that jungle. Les didn't actually take that many pictures. He was really focused on filming. Maureen Gosling took some great pictures. She's got all kinds of good pictures.
Yeah, speaking of Maureen, there's a great moment in the commentary of Burden of Dreams where she says that she always wanted to go back and ask the Amazonians there, the indigenous people, some questions. Did she or Les or you for that matter ever go back? Do you want to go back and kind of see
Yeah.
what that area is like now?
Yeah, I'd love to go back and see what's happened. I know that the producer of the Fitzgeraldo, I think he's actually lives there and started a place called Fitzgeraldo.
Oh
And
wow.
I've seen the billboards that people have sent me of after they go to Iquitos, and there's these gigantic ayahuasca billboards. That kind of thing makes me curious to see what it's like nowadays. Maureen has been in touch with some younger photographers that have been documenting the people there now, and a lot of the people that are in the film are still alive. And it really would be fun to hopefully, when Burden of Dreams is released this year, it'll get booked in Peru, and we can go to Peru and see for ourselves. I'd love to go.
Wow. That would be so special. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, do you have contact with Herzog still, or
Yeah,
what's that
yeah.
relationship like?
I'm kind of probably always going to be Les's son to Werner, so I'm probably never going to be um, a contemporary or I'm just he. I grew up being the son of Les Blank, so in his eyes, I probably am just going to stay like that. But I respect him tremendously, and I know that there's affection there, but I'm not Les Blank, and I know that Werner misses Les, and we have a connection, and I think that this movie is as much in a way for Werner as and his legacy as it is for Les and Maureen, and just the film's own. It's an entity into itself. The film is, in my mind, it deserves all of the effort and the money that we're putting into it. It is to me, it's an important film, and it sort of validates the life of creativity that went into it. And I don't know, I think it's hopefully Werner will appreciate it too. I think he probably will. He's going to be hopefully at attending some of the screenings in LA in September. So people should look out for that. I would definitely try to attend any screening with Werner in person with Burden of Dreams, the
Mhm.
remastered version, because I think it's going to blow his mind.
Yeah, did you remember that Les and Werner, like they remained good friends post Burden of Dreams, like they would still hang out with each other kind of thing.
Yeah, in fact, Werner had a tremendous influence on Les on how he created a nonprofit before his death. That was Werner's idea, which I facilitated. And then Werner actually had a feeling that he should come visit Les on the day he died. So Werner arrived at the house about, I think, 45 minutes after Les died. And
Wow.
so Werner came into the house and um, we all gave him a hug, and he hung out for part of the day and was part of the family. I mean, Werner is part of the family.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
That's yeah, that's an incredible story.
I'll elaborate upon that just so you have this. I was filming my father's body being taken out of the house, and tears uncontrollably were coming out of my eyes.
Hmm.
And as I was following the body, and it passed through the kitchen and into the dining room, Werner was entering the house. And I remember that Werner and my eyes locked, and he saw tears coming out of my eyes. And I saw him looking aghast as the body passed him by
Hmm.
on the gurney. And we went past Werner, and I was filming. So Werner's in the camera. And then we took the body out to the hearse. That's when Werner arrived, right when the body was being taken out of the house.
Wow. Wow. Is there any plan to use any of that footage, or it seems so personal that you probably keep it in a vault somewhere? But is that
No, it's gonna be, we're gonna do a documentary on Les, and we've got a lot of footage, and it'll be probably worked upon starting this year. And we're gonna do a documentary on Les and his biography and his career. And I think that the way that he died and the choices that he made and the unique choices about it all, which I documented, I think that that stuff will be in the movie as well. So, in other words, he lived an eccentric life, he lived a passionate, curious life, and he was also dying that way too. He
Mhm.
was going down with the ship. He ate oysters. He ate 3 dozen oysters 30 days before he died because he wanted to.
Yeah. Wow.
So he was going for the gusto of every bit of life that he could get before he died. And I filmed all that. There is another thing though that's coming out, which is Les's last film, which he started in 1995 about a folk artist named Butch Anthony. And he had filmed Butch Anthony every year from 1995 through 2012 until Les got cancer. And then when Les died in 2013, I took over the film and started filming Butch from 2013 all the way through this year. So the documentary on Butch, it's called You Can't Squeeze Blood Out of a Turnip. He's a folk artist from Alabama. And so that was filmed from 1995 to probably 2025. So that's going to be 30 years of a man's life and art. And so started by Les and finished by me. And we just did our first fine cut last week. So our idea right now is to follow up Burden of Dreams and the theatrical run that we get with the remastered Burden of Dreams, follow that up with Les's last film and book in the same theaters. And it is also sort of like a Burden of Dreams because Les worked on it for so long and he just couldn't get it finished. And so it's sort of echoes in the grandioseness of Burden of Dreams. It echoes that passion and passed, his generation onto mine, and it should be an amazing film too.
Wow. I cannot wait to see that. Going back to Burden of Dreams and just revisiting all of your father's films, what was it like specifically revisiting Burden of Dreams and with the remaster? Is there anything to look forward to in terms of like something new special features, new scenes that no one has ever seen, that kind of thing?
Well, I did do a bunch of work on outtakes, so I scanned I think about 4 hours of outtakes, and I'm not sure what's going to be done with those yet. We're working on something. I actually haven't watched the footage yet. I need to watch it. I just haven't had time. But the most special thing about the remastered version of Burden of Dreams is that Anthony Matt worked, I don't know, maybe 1,000 hours or more on removing the dust from every frame.
Wow.
And so the picture is very, very clean. And like there's no hairs in the gate. I mean, there might be a couple, but we couldn't get rid of. But for the most part, there's no hairs in the gate. There's no dust. The it was scanned to 6.5K and finished at 4K. And then the most special part of this, I think, is going to be the audio restoration by Nick Berg at Endpoint Audio in LA. And he listened to it and he goes, Harrod, the audio's terrible. We have to find a different master. So I kept looking and looking and looking. And finally, he asked me if he could talk to the Academy and see if they might have the tapes. I said, yeah, of course. So that's what he did. And they found the tapes. Then we hired Nick to transfer all those tapes using his own Nagra, and he knows how to set the heads just perfectly to get the most out of the audio. And he transferred all the tapes. That's the first thing that we did. Once he did that, we knew sort of how much better the audio was. For example, Werner Herzog's dialogue was 50% better. The narrator was 50% better. The music was 50% better. We actually went all the way back, and I bought albums like one album that was still in existence off of Discogs, and it was factory sealed. And Nick transferred it and cut that in the movie, and it's impeccable. So
That's incredible.
most, I'm generalizing, but most films, they don't go back to the Nagra tapes and redo the entire soundtrack. That's what we did with Burden of Dreams. And so this is it may set a precedence of a quality in the audio that no one's seen before for an independent documentary, for sure. It's like you're seeing the film with glasses on, And what happens when you do that, you escape more in the movie. You are watching the movie more intently and you're not aware that you're watching a movie. You get lost in it. And that's the beauty of restoration is you can get rid of all those things that remind you that you're watching a movie. That
Mm-hmm.
kind of takes you out of it. You're one step removed from the movie. So
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely worth doing what we're doing. And I don't think, hopefully, that anybody will ever have to do this again. These films are going to be pristine and filed away, and hopefully for as long as they can last, you know.
Yeah, revisiting the film, do you have any scenes that kind of stick out to you from Burden of Dreams that is like a personal favorite of yours? I know I like all the bits where Werner's kind of addressing the camera because he has such a way with words, but yeah, I was wondering if you had any moments from Burden of Dreams that you really respond to.
I really like the indigenous people, and I like seeing that how Les filmed them working and living their lives and their beauty. Like he really focused on their beauty and their faces and the jungle. I really like that frog shot. The frog shot is incredible. That the frog that's hanging on the side of the tree.
Yeah.
Uh, and of course, what you mentioned of Werner is amazing as well.
You've got this retrospective coming up in Berkeley at the BAM PFA from June 7th through July 27th.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about this retrospective? I think by the time this comes out, it'll be at the tail end of the retrospective. But do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. I would say that if you could, I mean, I don't know if there's going to be tickets available, but if you could see Burden of Dreams, the remastered version in Berkeley, it'll be really special. The Maureen Gosling will be there, and Chris Simon, and a lot of the people from Flower Films that was once Flower Films, it became Les Blank Films after his death. A lot of filmmakers will be there. It'll be quite the deal. And then after that, it's going to run. It's going to begin its theatrical run in other venues in the Bay Area. So if you don't make it to the BAM screening PFA on the 27th, it's going to be playing all over the Bay Area. So I think that just keeping your eyes out for that, and if you like the film that you remember in the beginning, when you watch this new version, it's gonna blow your mind how good it is. So I'm really happy with it, and I think it's been worth what is it, 3 years now that we've been working on it, something
Mm-hmm.
like 3 years,
Wow.
and it's I call it the burden of dreams. We've been working on this thing. I mean, it is a burden. I've watched that film at least 20 times now since we've been doing the dust removal and the audio. 20 times I've had to watch it, the full thing, and analyze how to make it better.
Do you have any plans to show it other places in the country outside of Berkeley? I
Oh
know
yeah,
the
yeah.
Music Box Theater in Chicago would love to show it.
I will bet you it'll be at the Music Box. It's going to be distributed by Argo Pictures. That's Argo, ARGOT, pictures.com. And they're doing the theatrical distribution. So he's going to be booking it. His name is Jim Brown. He'll be booking it in every art house theater in America. So it's just starting July 19th at the Film Forum, and then it opens up in theaters all over the place. But it's going to be a peppered run. So it'll be at different times. Whenever a venue has the time and they want to show Burden of Dreams, they will. And it's only going to be available in theaters for the first 2 years. After 2 years, then we will release it on streaming, etc. But for right now, we really want to encourage people to see the film in the theaters with the 5:1 mix, which it never had before. The 5:1 mix is incredible, and the music is amazing. It's something you really have to see to understand what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And then next year, what I would say is keep your eyes out for You Can't Squeeze Blood Out of a Turnip. because it's going to be following in the footsteps of Burden of Dreams, and that movie's a 30-year film, and it's also like a Burden of Dreams. It just happens to be about a very dream-oriented folk artist from Alabama named Butch Anthony.
Nice. Sounds great.
And you can see his art on butchanthony.com.
Yeah, I guess I was just curious if there are any plans to like maybe like release like a physical version of Burden of Dreams, like a Blu-ray or something like that.
Oh yeah, that'll be happening with Criterion. I have a feeling that Criterion will release the new Blu-ray right when the rights are available, and which I think is in 2025, and they'll release the new version.
Nice.
And maybe by that time we'll have these extras edited, and there'll be some amazing outtakes that they're really cool.
Mm.
But if you can imagine, the time that it takes to do this type of work is pretty big. And Les had over 40 movies, so I'm still the films that I've scanned that yet to be remastered that I've already scanned are Mark and Ann, Zivoli, 7 Second Love Affair, which Les shot, uh, Torumba, which is made by Kidlat Tahimic, and Perfume Nightmare. All of these have been scanned, but we just haven't had the time to remaster them. And we've committed to Les before he died that we would try to do one film a year. And we've done about 7 films so far in 10 years. So
Mm.
we've done pretty well, but it's just I have to live my life too. I can't just be living for Les Blank's legacy.
Yeah.
There is a guy named Harrod Blank that's out there too.
Yes, and he makes some great films that I really encourage everybody to check out.
Yeah, I'm not
I'm
even talking about my movies. It's like I don't even. It's all about Les.
no,
Really. You have mentioned my films, but I have other films that I'm doing too.
yeah, no,
Mhm.
I'm very curious about that. So what are you working on right now?
Well, I've got a short film on Salvation Mountain that we edited with Ben Abrams, and it is just held up in it's color corrected, but it needs to be mixed, and then it needs to be outputted. Basically, I mean, we're really close, and
This is a
that's a 20
documentary.
minute 20 minute documentary, on Leonard Knight with Salvation Mountain that I shot in 1995, and then there's the Burning Man epic, 31-year project at Burning Man, which we'll be filming again this year. And we're just starting to do the assistant editing on it right now with a young man, Sasha Kalawangoma, who you saw earlier in the room.
Mm,
Nice.
He's
cool.
going to be working on the assistant editing, and we're going to get that thing going.
Awesome. And I just did watch Why Can't I Be Me Around You about your friend Rusty, who fixed up your camera car.
Right?
And I was just curious, how is Rusty? What's Rusty up to these days?
Rusty is still doing the transition and is still working on her body and her attributes. And she did come to Douglas, Arizona with her father in the car, and they made a road trip together, which was really big for Rusty, really, really big. Before her dad passed, they made a road trip together. It was really touching for them, and let go a lot of the dissonance about the transition, et cetera. And they delivered the race car. So we have Rusty's race car and Rusty's handmade copper motorcycles in the museum, and we will be doing a little exhibition at the museum of Why Can't I Be Me Around You, with some footage or scenes and Rusty's inventions and car and motorcycles.
And has she produced her rock opera yet? Because I really want to see that.
Yeah, she didn't really she didn't I thought that the movie would have inspired her to make short films and to become a personality on YouTube, etc. But she didn't really go for that yet. So we'll see if that transpires. But Rusty's still doing Rusty.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that she's thriving and that she made up with her father, or things are getting better there. Because yeah, towards the end of that film, not to spoil anything, but it takes kind of a harrowing turn at the end, made me worry about her.
Yeah, we were worried as well. And in fact, as it went down, and we sent the cut to Rusty, the editor Schuart Dyke, and we sent the movie to Rusty, and Rusty said, I don't want that scene about suicide in the movie. It makes me look bad. It makes all transgender people look bad. And we're like, no, that's the truth. And that shows your vulnerability, and it shows what you have to go through and what you have to overcome to do what you did. And you take that out of the movie and it doesn't have as much weight on it. And she watched it again and again and finally came to agree that actually maybe the movie having the suicide scene in it would encourage people to get through it and survive at all costs. So Rusty decided to use herself as an example to others to fight through it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting thing about documentary, like, or being the subject of documentary. I was just curious because we were talking about the documentary about yourself. I was wondering if you how you felt about that movie and how you're portrayed in it.
Okay, well, you remember, or you maybe not know this, but my father made a movie on the rock star Leon Russell back in 1974.
Poem is a naked person.
Exactly. And that movie, Leon hated that movie. And at the time when Leon watched the movie, I think he was around 30 years old, and he was a super rock star. So he perceived himself differently and thought that the movie should really be just about him. And the movie's actually about Oklahoma, and Leon Russell's the star of it, but there's a lot of other footage in that movie about the time and place. And Leon didn't like it. So when when we were interviewed by Jonathan Demme in New York at the premiere, at the Film Forum with Leon Russell in person with Jonathan Demme presenting, Jonathan Demme asked Leon on stage, he says, so how did you feel when the movie came out, and how do you feel about it now? And Leon says, well, when it came out, I didn't much care for it. And Jonathan says, how many times did you watch it? And Leon said, just once. That's all I needed. And Jonathan said, that was your mistake. You actually need to see a film 3 times before you make a judgment on it. The first time you watch it for how you perceive and how good looking you are and how you act, and it's all about you. The second time you watch the movie about yourself or that you're in, you see yourself and how you interact with others and how you're intertwined with all this other material. And then the third time you watch the film, you're actually watching it as a work of art, as a film. And that's when you make your judgment whether you like the film or not. And Leon was blown away by that analysis. And in fact, I'll never forget that either, because the same thing happened to me when I watched David's movie for the first time. Oh my God, it's Harrod Blank. I was like, this isn't me. I don't act like that. I'm not just this poetic sad sack that goes around miserable. I mean, I'm totally a different person. So I watched it the first time, and then I watched it again, and then I watched it with some other people, and I came to the conclusion that the movie is a good movie. It just so happens that it's not my movie, and it's not really me per se. It's David's representation of me, which is fine. I mean, that's what it is. I am happy that David made the movie. It doesn't mean that I think that it is totally accurate. And so it's funny you bring this up, because I've been I had to deal with this exact thing with Rusty.
Mm.
And it was pretty hard, gnarly there for a while until we convinced Rusty to let it go. And then we've also been, I just showed the film recently to Butch Anthony, and he was concerned about the biographical information in that movie. And it is tough when you're the subject of a documentary, and it's a really weird thing. It's not really you. It's a representation of yourself. So you just have to grin and bear it, I think, ultimately.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's entertainment, like you were saying earlier. You gotta kind of do what you gotta do for the sake of the film and for the audience. And when you're the subject of that, you kind of probably feel like a carnival act or something.
Exactly. And you start talking about yourself in the third person because you become a character. It's sort of like the Burn of Dreams analogy that I was talking about earlier. The
Hmm.
bigger the risk that you take and the more personal you are and the bigger the consequences, both positive and negative. It just becomes a more intense thing. The more that you let go, the more that you share, the more that you reveal, the more power the film has, the more that it resonates because films, are sharing. Um, the more intimacy, the better. The more depth, the better. The more intensity, the better.
Yeah, thinking about intimacy, I guess I had one question I was wondering is like if Les was around today, do you have anything you'd like to say to him or ask him or ever think about that?
Uh, I don't really think about that. I think that he would be pretty intrigued by the monument that we're building because even myself, no one knows that I had this in me that I was going to build a monument. So it's going to come as a total surprise. I think
Hmm.
David is actually updating his movie to include the fact that we're building a monument at the end because he didn't see it coming either.
Mm.
And so he wanted to include that in his movie, which, by the way, is going to be released on Criterion.
Oh,
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, Criterion is going to be taking, I think, 25 more of our movies from Les Blank Films.
Awesome.
I
That's
th
exciting.
I think they're supposed to start streaming in June, but I'm not sure when they're going to do it.
Well, I noticed recently that a lot more of Les's films are on the Criterion channel right now. You can pretty much watch that whole collection from Always for Pleasure is all on there.
Oh yeah, yeah, they've had
Yeah.
that up there for a while. But these movies are movies that well, they just haven't been released on Criterion before, and they're coming. So eventually, my goal, which I explained to them, was I want all of Les's movies and all of our movies that are part of Les Blank Films, Maureen Gosling and Chris Simon and David Silberberg and everybody that's part of it. I wanted all their movies to be in one place that they could be. Um, on one channel and available. So Canopy, Criterion, wherever. And so a person could actually become familiar with the entire library of all this work. And I think that would be an amazing thing. Now, ultimately, if they were all remastered, that would be even better.
Mm.
Uh, but right now, the way we're going to do this is that the films are going to go up, and then as we remaster them, the remastered versions will replace the non-remastered versions, and it'll get better and better quality as we go forward.
Before we let you go, I have to ask you about Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah,
How did you get involved with that?
that's another weird one. I was basically post college, and I was writing a feature screenplay at Denny's at night, and I was living in the Hotel St. George, which was a hotel for basically transients to have a cheap place to live. And because I was trying to make a feature film and dump all my money that I made painting into this film, and I saw this casting call for Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So I went down there in my car, oh my God, and showed up there was a big line of people that were getting screened for casting. And of course, the Kyoto brothers and the casting director saw, oh my God, and are like, what the hell is that? And they looked at the car and they said, who's that guy? And came up with a name, Harrod Blank. And then they asked me, I was asked a bunch of questions about my abilities, et cetera. And then it dawned on them, oh my God, you're a college basketball player, or you were a college basketball player? I said, yep. And they said, well, you look like you might be able to handle one of these clown costumes. Would you be willing to try that? And I said, sure. So I went to an audition after the casting call, and they had me do all these things in costume, like walk across the room drunk and go choke somebody out and do this stuff. And they were impressed with my size and the way that I handled the costume, I guess, and the way I walked. And they said, are you available for the next 2 weeks? And I said, yes. They said, would you like to play clowns? And I said, yes. And that was it. I was cast as 7 clowns in Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
That must have been so much fun.
And the weirdest thing, this is the weird thing, and I'll use this as an example for younger people, but I went into this thing with no expectations. I just was trying to do a gig and be part of this movie, and it turned into something much bigger. And 25 years later, I get this call from this guy named Sean, and he says, "Are you Harrod Blank?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I want to be your agent." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "You were in Killer Clowns, weren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I was in Killer Clowns." He goes, "Well, I want you to sign autographs." And I said, "Dude, nobody wants my autograph. Don't even worry about it." And he goes, "I've already been asked for it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what?" And then he said, "I want to send you to these conventions, these horror conventions." And I said, "Okay." And for that was like 10 years ago. And now I'm doing 6 to 8 conventions a year. And I've got fans that are 5 years old that want my autograph. And people are showing me my tattoo of my character's face all over their bodies. And I'm just like, this is the weirdest. Pinch me, man, because I'm dreaming. This is the weirdest thing that's happened. And so that's why I tell people just do things um, with no expectations and do your best, and you never know what's going to happen.
Nice.
Wow. I think it's a good place to leave it. Unless there's anything else you feel like we left out or anything you want to talk about.
Uh,
We still have like probably 20 more questions, but I want to respect your time here.
yeah, I do need to make some moves. I mean, if you want, you can throw the questions at me right now, and I'll answer the most interesting one. How about
Well,
that?
have you seen the documentary now parody of Burden of Dreams?
Okay, what's the next question?
What about, have you seen Mad Max? What do you think of those cars?
I love them. I absolutely love Mad Max. In fact, we're going to see the new movie tonight.
Hell yeah.
We're going to have
Nice.
pizza and beer and watch it. Yeah, baby.
You're in for a treat. It's a real good time.
Can't
Um,
wait. Yeah, I love a documentary now. I'm not a big satire guy, and it didn't really. I don't know. I'd have to see it again. I only saw it once, and it was quick. And I know a lot of people like it though. So how does this interview tie into your overall scope of your show?
I think it ties in beautifully, honestly. I mean, everything that you said about Les.
Yeah, the father-son dynamic and filmmaking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also you've talked to my father, you've talked to my dad, and that's how this all came to be. And my dad is an artist, and when I was watching Wild Wheels, he is so in the vein of these people. Like the Wild Wheels characters, yourself, honestly, like
Yeah.
he is so similar. Like, he's been an actor his entire life. But when him and my mom got divorced and he had his own townhouse, he decorated every inch of his townhouse. Like he would glue pennies all along the windowsills of all of the windows. He had puppets everywhere. He built his own clocks. He worked at a saw blade factory and would like
Yeah.
build these like very unique, one of a kind clocks that would fill the house. So when I walk in, it was just like tick, 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 just like ticking clocks everywhere. So, I mean, personally, I just feel like you were able to capture a type of person that I relate to like through my father. So I
Yeah.
really appreciated that.
Yeah. There's something really magical about that type of decoration and lifestyle. And there's just something, people that adorn their surroundings and their car or what have you. Um, it's a voice, it's their unique voice, and that's what makes it special to them and also to others. Like I love going into houses like that have been wildly, intensely decorated. I find it fascinating, and I always look around and see things that are part of their character or what they like in your dad's case, clocks. I would be fascinated by that, just studying
Mhm.
it and then coming up with my own guesses, like what's this person like, who
Mhm.
made this art car? What makes them tick, no pun intended. And it's really fun to figure that out. And I like the diversity, I encourage diversity. I think that it makes the world a more festive place to have different people doing different things. And I really encourage everybody to do whatever it is that they want to express and as far as they can go with it. I love it. The further they go, the better. So I
Mhm.
probably would gravitate towards your dad and his place, etc. Um, yeah, that's funny that there's some similarities here. And it is a very specific thing or person to be the son of a filmmaker.
Mhm.
It really is. It's a different type of life because you tend to watch a lot more movies than the average person, and you tend to have I'm generalizing, but more of a broader amount of information coming at you from different walks of life and different places and different cultures, and it's exciting and it's very there's never a dull moment. I'll tell you that. With my father, there was never really a dull moment. It was always some sort of adventure or some sort of fulfilling his curiosity. And I would just go along for the ride. And you know what? I was happy to be in the car. I was happy to be taken wherever he was taking me. He took my brother and I to a nudist colony when we were like 7 and 8 years old. A nudist folk music festival. And I'm not kidding. And come on, that was a trip. And I'll never forget it.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. Yeah, well, my dad wanted me to tell you that you've got an open invitation to Hawaii if you ever want to come out and check out his art bike. He's got bikes that are all decorated. He decorates his helmets and he's like kind of the guy everybody notices when he's riding his bike around town. So
Good.
I really do feel like you guys are kismet in a way. And so I think that it's cool how you've gravitated towards us and given us your time so graciously in this interview. I feel like I've learned a lot,
Yeah.
and just thank you so much. This has
Oh,
been
what island is he on?
Big Island. He's on in Kona.
Good. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I like the Big Island the best.
And he wanted me to tell you too that we have this series that Zach has helped out with too that's on YouTube called The Surge. So anybody who visits my dad ends up being a part of this short film series called The Surge. So he said if Harrod wants to be in The Surge, you again, open invitation.
Okay, sign me up. I will. What I like to do with life is just when it happens, and I never know where or when I'm going to be invited to anything, but if Burden of Dreams gets invited to Hawaii, or especially Kona or Hilo or whatever, then there's an excuse to go and we'll make it work.
Awesome. Yeah, I know there's a beautiful theater in Hilo that and hearing this,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
sure my dad will make it happen.
Okay,
He'll
cool.
he'll ride his bike personally over there and with a copy of it.
I love art bikes too. Art bikes are cool.
Well, Harrod, thank you so much for your time, and we're really excited to see this restoration of Burden of Dreams. Anybody in the Berkeley, California area, it will be showing on July 27th, correct?
Yep,
And you'll be there.
I'll be there.
Maureen will be there. Anthony Matt will be there. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And let's stay in touch. And I look forward to seeing what you guys come out with.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and we want to thank our listeners for listening to this episode. You can check us out at Film with Family on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube.
And if you have a question for us, you can email us at filmwithfamilypodcast@gmail.com.
And we also have a Patreon. For $1.99 a month, you get a bonus episode every month. And right now we're doing a series on animal films. And to kind of tie in with this documentary themed month we got going, we're doing Grizzly Man by Werner Herzog and also Gates of Heaven by Errol Morris. So you can check that out on our Patreon. And if you want more Burden of Dreams conversation, you can check out an episode we posted 2 weeks ago on the main feed with Austin's dad, Glenn.
Yep. And we love the movies.
And we love our family.
Thanks again, Harrod.
Yeah, this has been a real
Right
treat.
on, guys. Thank you, and catch you out there.